In this video, we are going to have a look at the Lensgo LWM328C microphone system. This wireless microphone has a very special feature that would be a good solution to one of the biggest problems for all the wireless microphones. Kia ora, good morning everyone, Wujwon here, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to have a look at the Lensgo LWM328C, which is a UHF wireless microphone system that has some pretty special and very useful feature. But before that, let's quickly have a look at another microphone that Lensgo sent me at the same time, and it is this lavalier mic. This is the LYM DM1 lavalier mic. Very affordable, the price is under $20. So I'm going to share with you some of my quick impression, and that's also the microphone I'm using right now to record the audio in this video. But if you are not really interested in this lav mic and just want to directly skip to my 328C review, I put a timestamp here so you can just directly skip to the 328C review. This Lensgo LYM DM1 is a pretty affordable lavalier mic. As I mentioned before, the price is just under $20. And the spec of this mic is quite similar to the Synco S6E that I reviewed recently. It has a 6-meter long cable, very long cable, but the good thing is it does come with a plastic wire organizer thing so that you can use it to wrap the long cable around it when you don't really need such a long recording distance. This microphone requires a battery to operate, and the battery you install it inside the small control unit. This microphone uses a 3.5mm TRRS plug, which is usually what the smart devices like your smartphone will require if you want to do some recording on your smartphone. But you can use the switch on the control unit to switch the microphone into different operating mode. So if you are just using it with a normal camera, then you switch it to the camera mode, or if you want to use it with a smartphone, then you will switch it to the phone mode. But one thing is, if you are recording using a Panasonic camera like the Panasonic Lumix S5, which I'm using right now, then you have to switch it to the phone mode instead of the camera mode, because with the Panasonic camera, if it detects there is a TRRS plug, it will automatically switch to the special mode. So what you need to do is, well, first thing, the microphone switch to the phone mode, and then you go to your camera, and if you go to the video and then go to the special mic setting and set it to the shotgun mic, and that would allow the microphone to work perfectly on your Panasonic camera. I have to say I'm not really a big fan of lavalier mic that require a battery to operate, especially when it requires a cell button battery, which is probably not the easiest battery to buy. But it seems like there are more and more lavalier mic in the market require battery, like this Lensgo LYM DM1. When I'm using this microphone with the Panasonic Lumix S5, I have to set the input microphone volume to -12 dB to avoid clipping. Audio quality seems to be pretty good, pretty clean, and the noise floor is quite low as well. To be honest, I find most of the lavalier mic in the market that is around $20, they all deliver pretty decent audio quality, especially if you want to use it for vlogging or shoot some YouTube video like what I'm doing right now. And this Lensgo LYM DM1 mic is pretty much the same. Okay, now let's start talk about the 328C wireless microphone. And actually, let me switch over the microphone to the 328C microphone first so that you can hear the audio quality that is captured by the 328C. Okay, now I have just switched over and used the Lensgo LWM328C wireless microphone to record the audio. Before we start, I want to quickly mention one thing is, this wireless microphone system, there are two versions. The first one is the one that with one transmitter and one receiver, which is the one that Lensco sent me for this review. And the price for this single transmitter, single receiver package is just under $200. And there's another one that has two transmitter and one receiver, and the price of that one is just under $300. So the price of the LWM328C is pretty affordable. This Lensco 328C microphone has a pretty plastic construction, but at least the plastic it used is a high quality plastic. So compared it with the Lensco 308C, which I have reviewed a little while ago, this 328C definitely feel a lot more premium, and the build quality also feel quite a bit better. Apart from the transmitter having the word TX printed on here and the receiver has the RX word printed at the same place, the transmitter and the receiver has almost identical design. If you have watched some of my previous videos, you know that I'm not really a big fan of transmitter and receiver look almost the same, and the reason is because when you are setting up your camera, especially when you are in a hurry, quite often you may end up grabbing and set up the wrong unit in the wrong place. That means you may have the transmitter on the camera and wearing the receiver on yourself or on the talent. But at least with this Lensco 328C, there is another difference between the transmitter and the receiver, and that is on the transmitter there's only one antenna on it, and on the receiver there are two antennas on both sides. So at least that make it a little bit easier to distinguish between the receiver and transmitter. But what I really want to see is the transmitter and the receiver have a more different design, maybe change the color scheme, or maybe print the transmitter and receiver word much larger on the unit so that no one would make a mistake when they are setting up their camera. The size of the transmitter and receiver is a little bit bigger than the other wireless microphone set that I've reviewed recently, and I think there are two main reasons for that. The first one is the transmitter and the receiver each require two AA battery to power it, compared to most other wireless microphone system which use a built-in rechargeable battery. The downside is definitely that makes the transmitter and the receiver quite a bit bigger. But on the other hand, using the AA battery, that allow you to swap the battery very quickly and very easily when you are filming, especially when you need to film very long hours. So that would be a good news for professional users. And on the unit there is also a USB-C port on the side here, which allow you to charge the battery inside the unit. But Lensco does warn us that when you use the USB-C plug to charge it, plug it in, make sure you are using rechargeable battery inside it, because otherwise the unit would try to charge the battery inside it, and in the case that this is actually a non-rechargeable battery, something bad would happen. The transmitter and the receiver can still operate when you are charging it using an external USB power supply, but you do need to have a battery inside the unit for it to operate. In other words, you cannot just use an external USB power source to power the transmitter or the receiver. And the second reason is both the transmitter and the receiver has quite a large LCD display here. So on the transmitter, you can see information, for example, the battery status, what's the channel that you are setting it to, and also the connection status, and also the audio volume that is transmitting from the transmitter. On the receiver, you can see the connection information and status with the two transmitter. You can see the battery status of the receiver, and you can also see the battery status of the two transmitter, which I found is a very useful feature, because that means the videographer or the assistant, when you are filming, can keep an eye on the battery status of all the transmitter and receiver in case one of them running flat. One little thing I want to mention about the display is, I remember when the first time I took the receiver and the transmitter out of the box, I already noticed there seems to be a little bit of scratch on the display on both the transmitter and receiver, and I was thinking, how come? This is brand new. I haven't even took it out of the box. How come there's already a bit of scratch and on both the transmitter and receiver unit? Turns out there is actually a little transparent film that is applied on top of the transmitter and the receiver display. That is not really noticeable. Even when I look closely, I didn't actually notice there is a protective film on top. But end up, yeah, I peeled that film off, and yeah, the scratch is actually on the protective film itself. So yeah, if you also bought this 328C and notice there's a bit of scratch on the unit the first time you took it out of the box, don't worry, this is just the protective film that you can remove easily. So that's probably why the transmitter and receiver of this 328C is a little bit bigger than the other wireless microphone in the market. But I think for professional user, having a larger display on it and also allow you to swap out the battery easily with other AA battery is definitely a big plus compared to the slightly larger size of the unit. So overall, despite the slightly plasticky construction, I am pretty happy with the overall build quality and design of the transmitter and receiver for this Lensco 328C. But there is one thing though that I want to complain a little bit. That is, with the transmitter, there is a power button here, which you use to power on and power off the unit. With the receiver, because there are two antennas, so there's no room for Lensco to put a power button at the top like the transmitter. So what they did is the set button on the receiver also double as the power on and power off button. On the transmitter, if you want to go into the menu and change the settings, you do that by long press the set button on the transmitter. But on the receiver, long press means power on and power off the unit. So instead of long press the set button on the receiver, you do a short press to go into the menu to change the setting. So that creates a little bit of inconsistency between how you go into the menu system on the receiver and the transmitter. To me, I think a better solution is if Lensco somehow add a power button somewhere else on the receiver. So that would allow the user to use the exact same way to control both the receiver and the transmitter. One of the biggest problems when you are using a wireless microphone system is sometimes you may have radio interference and sometimes you may just have some random cutouts. So unless you have someone that is constantly monitoring the audio that is received by the receiver, you may not even notice all those audio issues until you finish filming and you are checking the video footage maybe the other day, or even if you have someone that is keep monitoring the audio signal received by the receiver. But if you are shooting some live event, then there's not much you can do to recover the lost signal. So there is one feature, and that is the special feature I mentioned in the beginning that this Lensco 328C has, and that is on the transmitter. It has a micro SD memory card slot so that you can plug in a micro SD card and have the transmitter also recording the audio to the micro SD card at the same time that you are transmitting the audio to the receiver. So that would serve as a backup audio source in case the transmission got some problem. You may have the interference or anything happen to the receiver receive audio. You can always go back to the audio that is recorded on the transmitter's SD card, and that would give you the perfect audio that is captured by the transmitter. So that is definitely a very useful safety feature, especially if you are shooting events or if you are a wedding videographer. Having a perfect audio backup on the transmitter's SD card could be a lifesaver. Also, because this feature doesn't actually require the receiver for it to work, that means you can use the transmitter by itself as a standalone audio recorder. The transmitter doesn't have a built-in microphone, so you have to plug in an external audio source for it to record audio. So the 328C does come with a bundled lavalier mic, which is what I'm using right now, and the lavalier mic also has the screw here for you to screw it onto the unit so that you won't accidentally put it out when you are filming. And the transmitter also can take a line in input instead of the microphone, and you can choose which input you want from the setup screen. On the receiver, apart from the audio out, there's also another port for you to plug in a headphone for you to monitor the audio. But if your camera has a headphone out, then I would recommend you use the camera's headphone out to monitor the audio, because that will give you a more accurate idea of the audio that is captured by your camera. So in terms of the transmission range, Lensgo say the maximum transmission range is 150 meters when there is a direct line of sight. So as usual, I did two tests. One is a indoor test here in my home, and then a outdoor test in an open space. And the result of the indoor test that I did in my home is excellent. Now my home is not a very big home, but it has 2 floors. So I have the receiver mounted on the camera, and I live in this room, and I walk around pretty much to every single room in my house. And even when I go upstairs and to the opposite side of the house, usually with the other wireless microphone system that I have tested recently, when I get to the 2nd floor and when I go slightly further away, then I start to have some cutout. This is absolutely no problem for this Lensgo 328C, even at the extreme opposite side of this house. And even when I go inside the shower area and I close the shower door, the receiver can still receive the audio perfectly. Now let's go out and do the outdoor operating range test, as well as a bit of outdoor audio tests. Alright, we are here outdoor again to test out the performance of this Lensgo wireless microphone. It's a pretty windy day today, so it'll be interesting to see how does this microphone performs when we are shooting at the outdoor windy environment. So let me move away from the camera and see how far I can go when the receiver can still receive the signal. Alright, let's go. Alright, I'm about 10 meters away from the camera, and let me turn around. Okay, now I am back facing the camera. Alright, I am now facing the camera again, and let me keep walking. Okay, I am about 20 meters away from the camera. It's a very beautiful day today, but every time I come out here, it's always pretty windy, which is probably not a bad thing to see how the microphone performs. Alright, I am now about 15 meters away from the camera, and let me turn around. I'm now back facing the camera, so can it still receive my signal right or not? And let me turn around, and now let me start walking, keep walking away from the camera. Okay, keep walking a little bit more, and I'm about 70, 80 away. And right now 100 meters away from the camera. Alright, and now I will turn around and just see how does it work. I'm 100 block receiver. Let me turn back. Alright, let me keep going. See how does it perform when I am in 50 meters, which according to Lensgo is the transmission range for this microphone. So now I am about 20 meter, 30 meter or so, and keep going. So I still have a direct line of sight the camera. 50 meters away from the camera, which is where my receiver is. So how is the audio signal transmitted from the camera, or I mean from the microphone to the camera? And let me turn around as well. So at 150 using my body, we turn around, and this is at 150. So the result from my outdoor test is quite interesting. There is something good and something bad about this 328C. The bad thing is, at the range that is around 70 to 80 meters, I am start having a bit of cutout at that distance, even when I have the direct line of sight. So this is not quite the 150 meter line of sight that is called by Lensgo, and also a little bit not as good as some other wireless microphone system that I have tested recently. But on the good side is, when I turn around so that my body is blocking the transmitter and the receiver, even at around 50 meters, which usually is the distance that all the other wireless microphone system I have tested recently would start having cutout. But with this Lensgo 328, I don't have any cutout even at 50 meters when I turn my body around. In terms of the audio quality, I think the audio capture using this bundle lavalier mic is pretty good. The audio capture is quite good quality and also pretty clean. The noise floor is quite acceptable level and probably a little bit better than most other wireless microphone that I have tested recently. The only downside I noticed is when I was recording outdoor using this bundle lavalier mic, the microphone seems to capture a little bit more wind noise than I expected, but this is something that can be easily fixed by switching to another lavalier mic or adding a better wind muff on top of the lavalier mic. This Lensgo LWM328C is quite an interesting microphone. Obviously, it is targeting a slightly different user group compared to most other wireless microphone in the market. A lot of the wireless microphone in the market are targeting people that doing vlogging or doing some casual video, while this LWM328C with features like allow user to record audio to the memory card on the transmitter, and also having a line in as well as the microphone in on the transmitter, and also using replaceable AA battery instead of the built-in rechargeable battery. These are all features that I think professional user will appreciate. The size and the weight of the transmitter and receiver are definitely a bit larger than most of the other wireless microphone system in the market, but I think for professional users, they would appreciate the larger display and the feature that is available on this Lensgo 328C compared to the other wireless microphone systems. One thing I'm a little bit disappointed is I can't really get that 150 meter line of sight operating range that is called by Lensgo. Yes, I can get the signal at 150 meters, but I do get quite a bit of cutout and also there's quite a bit of noise at that distance. But on the positive side, when there's no direct line of sight, the performance of this Lensgo 328C wireless microphone is actually pretty decent.